So this is a really good question, right? So there are dogs that are motivated enough to take rewards in new places around things that might make them nervous or other things. And there are other dogs where their anxieties or their even the curiosity to some degree in certain dogs overrides their motivation for rewards. And so if you go someplace new and the dog's either a little stressed by the place or just interested in other things in the environment, like, ooh, I've never smelled, this smells like other dogs have been here, or this smell like whatever, and they're not interested in taking rewards, then what do? If it's fear-based stuff, then what I try to do is just have them hang out in that environment and prevent anything from bad happening to them, right? So it's important that nothing escalates in that environment until they start to relax a little bit, and I then start to take rewards at that point. And the reward at that point isn't so much to help them work through as it is a barometer of how they're feeling. So some dogs that are nervous and initially they go into a new place, they're too nervous and they won't take any rewards. You hang out for a while and they start to relax, they start to realize nothing bad's gonna happen, they get a little familiar with it, and then they start taking rewards, right? And so at that point, the reward isn't really helping them get better. The reward is telling you that they're getting better. It becomes a diagnostic tool more than it becomes a way of working through. So yeah, I hang out around the things, I pay close attention to threshold distances and things like that, how close I am to the things that are making them nervous until they get better. You can use other things that the dog might like. You can use a little bit of reassurance and things like that. You can pet them, just sit with them, hang out, all those kinds of things to get them comfortable. And then on the side, start trying to build more motivation. So this is one of the big things where I think the divide between pet and working people is at its worst, right? So in working people, everybody in working circles says you need more motivation, of course, right? We want our dogs to do all these crazy things. They have to be motivated for rewards in order to do these things. If my dog's gonna search for people and search and rescue, that dog has to be really motivated. It's not gonna do that for somebody to pat it on the head. It's going to find somebody to play with them or something else. If I'm gonna teach my dog to do competitive obedience and I want my dog to focus heel around for 15 minutes staring at me, your dog has to want something pretty badly to walk around staring at you for 15 minutes. And so motivation for the working dog people, everybody gets that, and you need that. Pet dog people don't get that in the same way. They're like, why do I need my dog to be motivated? And they don't for the behavior portion of it. You don't need your dog to be that motivated because they're not going to do complex behaviors in the same way. But they need it frequently to work through issues of anxiety or that kind of thing. And the dog trainer's worst nightmare is a low motivation, fearful dog. It's awful. It's the worst thing. Like, all you've got is just hang out and hope they get better. You've got the habituation portion, right? I'm like, just deal and I hope you get better. And sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. And some dogs that are very nervous but very motivated, you can make them way better really fast. And so there's the combination of sort of hanging out, habituation stuff, getting them used to the place or the thing or wherever it is, and then working hard outside of that to build increased motivation for the reward. And so that's, if you're using food, it's getting them more hungry, finding different types of food rewards that are more palatable, doing dynamics. We'll talk about this stuff later on when we start talking about motivation, ways in which we build motivation for certain types of rewards. And if I can crank up the motivation, then I hit a spot where that'll start to override the environment and we get into a more functional spot. But there are always going to be dogs that we just won't take rewards in a new place. Well, so you can use a toy. It depends on the environment. Like, so can I? I've used toys in some really funky, crazy places with dogs that people thought I was insane. When we were in New York City, Carol went to grad school. We lived in New York City for 5 years and lived in a 6-story apartment, a 300 square foot apartment in the city. And so, when we moved to New York, I had a 6-month-old Malinois that was mean as sin. She hated everybody. She wanted to kill everything on the planet. And so we moved into a tiny apartment. And to leave the apartment to take her out to go to the bathroom, you have to get in the elevator, go down, across the street, so there was no place to go. And she was insane for toys, though. Her saving grace was the fact that she was bonkers for toys. And I walked around with a toy all the time. So I'd be in the elevator and the elevator door would open, and I'd pop the toy up and I'd be playing tug of war. People would get in the elevator like, what the hell are you doing, right? I'd walk down the street, somebody would approach, and I'd pop out a toy and play tug with her. And a dog would come forward, and I'd pop out a toy and play tug with her everywhere. So you can use toys the same way you would use food if your dog plays. Most dogs that are nervous like that and won't take food, there are occasionally dogs that are really toy motivated that are like that, but usually it'll start to affect their play too. And so if the dog is too nervous to play, then trying to continue to get them to play can mess up your play relationship. And so you just have to kind of play it by ear. But you can use a toy the same way you would use food, assuming you have that available to you. And then if you're someplace where that's not functional, there's a lot of stuff that's just easier we do with food because it's easier to do with food. I can dispense pieces quickly. It's a little more low arousal. I can turn their head more. There's lots of little things like that manipulation that we use food for that is kind of hard to do with a toy, but you can still do some of it with a toy.